Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Right, so imagine this. You're getting your hair braided, right? It's something so many people do, especially in Black culture. It's like a tradition, like a style that's been passed down. But what if I told you those synthetic hair extensions you're using, well, they might have some hidden dangers lurking inside them.
Yeah, I mean, braids are like the go-to style for so many. They're convenient, they protect your hair, and they look amazing. So to think that there might be some downsides, some risks we haven't really considered, well, that's definitely something worth exploring.
Totally. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at this new study. It's from Consumer Reports, those guys that, test everything for safety. And we've also got this really insightful article. It's from a health news outlet in Atlanta. And they're really getting into how all this is landing in the Black beauty community. The folks who use these products the most.
It's such an important angle. Consumer Reports, they went deep, really investigated all these popular synthetic braiding hair brands. And then this article from Atlanta, it brings in the voices of the people on the ground, the hairstylists, the scientists, right in the heart of the Black beauty world. It gives us that real-world context, how these findings are actually hitting people.
Absolutely. So what we're trying to do in this deep dive is cut through the noise and help you understand what this all means. We're pulling out the key stuff from the Consumer Reports study, the reactions, especially what's happening in Atlanta, and we want to make sure you get it, the potential worries, what the alternatives might be, all of that, but without overwhelming you. So let's start with the study itself. What were they even trying to find out with this thing?
Well, Consumer Reports wanted to see if all those popular synthetic braiding hair products out there, if they actually contain heavy metals and these things called volatile organic compounds.
Yeah.
And really, the big question was, could these things be harmful to the people using the extensions?
Okay, that makes sense. So how did they test these products? What was the process?
So they chose 10 big popular brands of synthetic braiding hair. And then get this, for each of these brands, they took 2 different samples. Really wanted to make sure they were thorough. Then they tested these samples for these specific heavy metals like arsenic, cadmium, and lead. And they also checked for a whole bunch, 65 different volatile organic compounds. But they didn't stop there. They tested for these things at normal room temperature, and then again after heating the hair up all the way to the boiling point of water, 212 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow, that is serious testing. So once they found these things, how did they figure out if they were actually dangerous?
Good question. They looked at all the ways you could be exposed to these chemicals, like breathing them in, touching them with your skin, or, even accidentally swallowing them. And when it came to lead specifically, their risk assessment really honed in on that possibility of swallowing it. They figured, hey, people touch their hair all the time, then they might touch their mouth, or, those little tiny pieces of synthetic hair they could break off and accidentally get eaten.
Oh, wow, I hadn't even thought of that. So let's get to the scary part, cancer-causing stuff, carcinogens, right? What did they find about that?
Here's the thing. They found carcinogens, these potential cancer-causing chemicals, in all 10 of the products they tested, every single one. 3 of them had benzene, which is a known carcinogen. It's linked to this type of leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia, and then methylene chloride. They found that in every single sample. And it's classified as a probable carcinogen, meaning there's a good chance it could cause cancer too.
Okay, so that's benzene, methylene chloride, and they're everywhere. Did they find anything else that could potentially cause cancer?
Yeah, there were a bunch more. They found things like chloroform, styrene, 1,2-dichloroethane, carbon tetrafluoride, and then ethylbenzene, isopropylbenzene, and naphthalene. Which brands had which? It varied. You can see all the details in your full report. It's online. But the takeaway is that, there were multiple potentially cancer-causing chemicals all over the place.
Wow, that Atlanta article really zeroed in on the lead they found, though. What was the deal with that? What did Consumer Reports find?
We found lead in 9 out of 10 of the products they tested. And their analysis, it showed that the levels of lead in those 9 brands could expose people who use those extensions regularly to some pretty worrisome amounts over time. To help us understand these levels, they looked at California's maximum allowable dose level, or MANDL. California has super strict limits on lead based on all the research, It's all about keeping people safe.
So how bad was it? How did the brands stack up against this California limit?
Okay, so I'm going to list these brands from the highest to the lowest percentage exceeding California's maximum allowable dose level for lead. Ready? Sassy Collection, they came in at 610% above the limit. Then Magic Fingers at 603%. Darling Flexi Rod Curls Crochet, 585%. Then Shake and Go Organique Master Mix, 435%. Sensational Rua Kids at 338%. Debut Wavy Hair Weave, 198%. HB Afro Twist at 150%. Sensational Lulutris Crochet, 128%. And then Shake and Go Free Twist at 123%. But here's the thing. Sensational Expression. They had no detectable lead. So you see, some of these brands, they're exceeding the safe levels of lead by like hundreds of percentage points. Not just a little bit, a lot. That's huge.
That is shocking. What can happen to you if you're exposed to lead for a long time?
Long-term exposure to lead, it can lead to some really serious health problems. We're talking brain and nervous system damage, problems with your immune system, making it harder to fight off infections. It can cause reproductive issues, kidney damage, and high blood pressure. And for kids, it's especially bad. It can affect their development and how their brains grow.
This is all pretty concerning. Now, they also looked at these things called volatile organic compounds, VOCs. What was the story there?
Yeah, so Consumer Reports found that when they heated the synthetic braiding hair, it released these volatile organic compounds. And, a lot of people use hot water to seal the ends of their braids. So they found acetone, which is known to irritate your lungs, at the highest levels in most of the products when they were heated.
Okay, so acetone, that's not good. What about VOCs in general? What can happen if you're exposed to them?
VOCs, they can do all sorts of not-so-fun things to your body. You can get irritation in your eyes, nose, and throat, feel nauseous, even damage your central nervous system. And some research even suggests a link between certain VOCs and a higher risk of cancer down the line. What's crazy is that every single product they tested released at least 6 different VOCs when heated, and one of them released 14. 14 different VOCs.
Yeah.
Just from one product when it's heated.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so let's take a step back. We've got carcinogens, lead, volatile organic compounds. What does all of this mean for someone who, regularly wears braids with these synthetic extensions?
It basically means there's a real possibility of long-term health problems. It's the carcinogens and the lead, and because people wear braids for so long and there's that potential for touching your hair and then your mouth, well, it adds up. Plus, there's the risk of, breathing in those VOCs when you're sealing the braids with hot water. That can have some more immediate effects, like making you feel sick to your stomach or dizzy. It's a lot to consider. It really is. And that article from Atlanta, it brought in a lot of voices from the community. What was the reaction like there?
There was a lot of anxiety, even some fear, from both the people who do braiding and the people who get their hair braided. Many felt like they were being, targeted, especially after all the concerns about chemicals and hair relaxers in the past. And there was a feeling that not enough research has been done on products used mainly by Black women.
So you've got this cultural tradition of braiding. It's so important, but then there are these health worries. It sounds like a tough spot to be in.
It is. Braiding, it's deeply rooted in Black culture, and it's a really important way to protect natural hair. But with this new information, it's like, how do you balance that cultural significance with the possibility that it could be harmful? One stylist in Atlanta, Diane James, she put it really well. She said, it's kind of like smoking cigarettes. We know they're bad for you, but people still do it.
Right, it's complicated. It's important to remember that no study is perfect, though. What were some of the limitations that Consumer Reports talked about?
Yeah, they pointed out that when they assessed the risk from lead, they really focused on the risk of swallowing it. Now, they did think about the possibility of inhaling lead or absorbing it through the skin, but when it came down to it, they focused on ingestion because of the data they had and the specific California safety standard they used.
And what about that panel discussion in Atlanta? Did they bring up anything that the Consumer Reports study maybe didn't cover fully?
The experts in Atlanta, scientists and hair professionals, they mostly agreed that the Consumer Reports study was a good first step, but they felt like it didn't give people totally clear guidance. Should people just stop using synthetic hair altogether? They weren't sure. They really stressed that we need more research to get a better picture.
I remember Dr. Crystal Porter had a really important point about that, didn't she?
Yes. Dr. Porter really emphasized that we need research that includes Black women specifically. She pointed out that Black women might have different hair care practices, and there are environmental factors that aren't always considered in general studies. So it's hard to know the real risks for Black women who use synthetic braiding hair a lot.
It seems like the companies that make these products, they haven't really responded much to these findings.
You're right. Consumer Reports reached out to all the brands, and only two of them, Sensational and Magic Fingers, actually gave statements. Both of them questioned the way the study was done, the methods, and they said their products are safe. But neither of them actually addressed the fact that their products were found to have things like lead and carcinogens in them.
So what about regulations, the FDA? Do they have any rules about these types of products?
That's the thing. The article talked about how there aren't really any specific regulations from the FDA about the safety of braiding hair.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, cosmetics are regulated in general, but there's nothing about synthetic braiding hair, no safety standards, no recalls, anything like that.
Okay, so it's kind of a gray area. Now, there were some great opinions from experts in that Atlanta article. What were some of the things they had to say?
So Dr. Porter, Dr. Gaines, Amber Matthews, and Kenton Hipsher, they all agreed that the study was a good starting point, but more research is definitely needed, and it needs to focus on Black women's experiences. Dr. Porter really hit on this idea that people trust the products they use, so it's up to the companies to do their own research and make sure their products are safe.
That's a good point. And dermatologist Chizana Kindred, she talked about something a lot of people might have experienced.
Yeah, she talked about contact dermatitis,
Hmm.
which is a rash you can get from touching synthetic hair. She said if you start itching or burning, anything like that, take those braids out right away. It means your skin is reacting to the hair.
Good advice. Now, Tamara James Todd from Harvard, she brought up something called endocrine disrupting chemicals. What are those all about?
These are chemicals that can mess with your hormones. They can be in synthetic hair, and they can get into your body in different ways. You can absorb them through your scalp, breathe them in, or even touch the hair and then touch your mouth.
Pavna Shamasunder from Occidental College, she pointed out another big problem.
Yeah, she said it's hard to know what you're really being exposed to because beauty products don't always list all of their ingredients. And then the whole beauty industry is kind of not really regulated that much.
It's like the Wild West out there. And then Christina Chapman from Baylor, she had a really important point.
She argued that when we're talking about cancer risks for Black women, we can't just look at the chemicals themselves. We have to consider the effects of systemic racism, too. She believes that the stress of experiencing racism can actually affect your body and potentially increase your risk of certain cancers.
That's such a crucial point. Now, I know a lot of people use apple cider vinegar to rinse their synthetic hair like a home remedy. Did any of the experts talk about that?
Alicia Franklin, she's from the Silent Spring Institute, she said that there's actually no scientific proof that apple cider vinegar gets rid of the harmful chemicals. And Cheryl Burgess, a dermatologist, she agreed. She said apple cider vinegar might make your hair softer, but it's not going to magically remove anything harmful.
So rinsing with apple cider vinegar may be not so effective. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here. What can our listeners do with all this information?
Well, first off, be a savvy consumer. Check the FDA's MedWatch website. They list product recalls. But like we said, there aren't any specifically for braiding hair yet. Read the labels on your hair products to see what's in them. And if you have any bad reactions after getting your hair braided, tell your doctor and report it to the FDA.
And the stylists in Atlanta, they had some tips for safer braiding, didn't they?
Yeah, some of them recommend washing the synthetic hair before using it, especially if you have sensitive skin. It's not clear how much that actually helps, but it might be worth a try. They also mentioned some plant-based brands like Rebundle, which uses banana fibers. Those might be safer, but they're usually more expensive and harder to find. And of course, there's human hair, but that's the priciest option.
So are there any positive developments happening?
Actually, yeah. Spelman College, they're expanding their cosmetic chemistry program, which could lead to more research and experts in this area. And the Department of Health and Human Services, they have this competition going on to try to reduce exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals for Black women. So that's hopeful.
That is good news. Here's a final thought to ponder. We've got these potential health risks, and then we've got this cultural practice that means so much to so many people. So whose responsibility is it to make sure these products are safe? Is it the people who use them, the companies that make them, or the government?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Who's ultimately responsible for making sure these products are safe when they're so woven into the fabric of a culture? It's something we all need to think about.
So to sum up, this study from Consumer Reports, it's raised some big red flags about these synthetic braiding hair products. Carcinogens, lead, VOCs, it's not good. And it started this important conversation, this search for safer alternatives, especially in the Black beauty community.
Yeah, we wanted to take all this complex information and make it understandable, bringing in the science and the experiences of the people who are actually dealing with this stuff.
If you want to learn more, definitely check out the brands that were in the study and do some research on those endocrine disrupting chemicals.
Thank you for joining us. This is such a crucial topic, and we appreciate you diving into it with us.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.